Good evening. My name's Jody. I'm from Prism Sound, and welcome to the latest in our series of creative conversations. I'm glad you've all made it tonight, and I hope you enjoy the presentation that we've got for you this evening. We've got a couple of guests lined up for you. But first, let me tell you a little bit about Prism Sound. So if you're new to the world of audio or the world of music creation, you may or may not have heard of Prism Sound. Prism Sound has been going since 1987. So we're over 30 years old. And we have a rich heritage in creating the best in the world of digital audio interfaces. We started out as a spin-off. The two gentlemen started the company was a spin-off from AMS Neve, and they designed the first digital console, which a lot of people think was the Neve Capricorn. In fact, it was the Neve DTC digital transfer console, which is used in mastering. The two gentlemen in question were Graham Boswell and Ian Dennis. And in the early 90s, they did a lot of contract work, and Prism Sound did a lot of contract work. We designed the digital routing matrix for Barcelona Olympics. And then we started out creating the DA1 and then the AD1. And that progressed on to us developing things such as the legendary AD-A8 XR, the Orpheus, and most recently things like Titan, Atlas, Lyra, and Callia. We continue that rich heritage today with us launching the last AES, the AD-A8 128, which will be our new flagship product, which we hope to be shipping in the near future. That is a multi-channel, 128-channel interface, which has 4 host slots, which can support multiple digital audio platforms. It has 4 clock mains and allows you to have an internal digital routing matrix. It's an extremely powerful box. So if you want to find more about that, visit www.prismsound.com. Anyway, that's not what you really want to hear tonight. You really want to hear from our guest speakers. So it's my pleasure to introduce KAV and Will Kennedy, who we'll be talking to this evening. So good evening, gentlemen.
Hi.
Hi, guys.
Hi, how you doing, Jody?
So actually, what I should say is that it may be the evening for KAV and myself, but Will, you're not in the UK. Whereabouts are yourself?
No, I am in Los Angeles, California, in the United States, where it is 11 a.m. in the morning. And so while you gentlemen might have a beer in front of you, I've got a coffee.
Yeah, well, you know, we Brits are an odd bunch, so we may have coffee as well. So anyway, let's get started. So, you know, the first question I've got for both of you really is, you know, how did you guys get into the music industry?
Go for it, Will. After you, mate.
Wow, it was a twisting path, and I feel like it's this way for a lot of folks. I definitely didn't know I was going to do this when I was young. I kind of fell in love with music around ages 13, 14, 15. I played trombone in my high school jazz band. But I grew up in a very small town in Western New York State near Buffalo, Niagara Falls, here in the States. And it was a farming community. Nobody knew anything about the music business, other than turning on the radio or going to the record store. That's the only information that we had. So all I knew was if I wanted to work in music, I could play in a symphony orchestra or conduct a symphony orchestra or teach kids how to play or conduct in a symphony orchestra. So I kind of bounced around a little bit. I graduated high school, went to college as a political science major, was deeply unhappy with that, transferred to another college where I was a music education major, figuring, well, at least I'll have something to fall back on. I was really unhappy with that. So I ended up dropping out of college for a couple of years. And then I ended up in Boston, where I applied to and very luckily got into Berklee College of Music. And Berklee opened up a whole new world for me. All of a sudden, there was this whole music business that I had previously not known anything about. And over the time I was at Berklee, the coursework I was doing, I got more and more interested in recording, which I knew nothing about really when I got there. And by the time I left, I was full on. I had gone from trombone was my major instrument there. I was playing drums and guitar and had just completely dove into the deep end on recording and went all in on that. And then from there, when I graduated Berklee, I worked at my first job in the business was Ocean Way Studios in Nashville, which is still around. And then I worked at the now defunct Right Track Recording in New York City, which is an amazing studio. I worked briefly at the Village here in Los Angeles, and then became a freelance producer, mixer, and engineer. And I've worked with great producers and engineers like David Bianco and Matt Wallace. Those guys were my mentors in the business, and got to work with great bands like U2 and One Republic, and of course the capping achievement of my career, Blitz Vega.
So over to you then, Kav. What an introduction.
I know. I mean, for me, it was just being a kid, being into rock and roll bands. I suppose getting into my aunt's records. She was away, and I'd play her vinyl when I'd come back from school because they were at my mum and dad's house, and just listening to the Beatles, the Stones, the Who, Pink Floyd, which is kind of weird for, I suppose, a kid who was growing up when I was growing up, for like a 7-8-year-old. But that was the music I was listening to first, and then I sort of discovered bands like Guns N' Roses, Nirvana, and the first thing I remember is sort of the first song I remember is George Harrison playing Got My Mind Set on You. I think that's what it's called. I just remember that being played on the radio and just thinking, wow. And then after that, seeing Guns N' Roses, a friend of mine gave me a copy of Guns N' Roses live at the Ritz in LA, and just seeing Izzy Stradlin kind of playing in the background, playing his sort of Gibson guitar / on his Les Paul, and that was it. This gang of pirates, rock and roll pirates, sort of strutting around the stage playing songs like It's So Easy and stuff, just blew me away, and I just decided that's what I wanted to do. And and then I discovered Nirvana and Oasis were the band that were kind of big when I was going to school. So that was it. And started a band when I was sort of 14, 15, and I've just been in bands ever since. And then I was just lucky enough to sort of play as a professional musician since the age of 18, really. So that's kind of it.
Fantastic. Well, one of the things that we should really sort of touch on is the things that have influenced you in your career. So, what sort of people have influenced you? You've touched on it a little bit. You talk about George Harrison, but
yeah,
what are those influences, and what type of things influence you to keep producing music?
I suppose when I first started, the excitement of music was just incredible. Every time you put on a record, or when I remember 94 being a really special year. The Stone Roses released a record. I think Black Grape, Oasis, all these bands were releasing records, and they were all amazing. And I was so excited to listen to new music and then discover music that came before that. I suppose throughout my 20s, I was touring with the Happy Mondays and playing with a few other projects, and it was just such an exciting time traveling around the world and just seeing a lot of people come to shows and playing festivals. And I guess I've never lost that excitement over the years. I'm still a huge fan of music. I listen to a lot of music every day. I still get excited listening to a new track by a favorite artist, whether it's a Stones track or something. I'll still get as excited as I did when I was a teenager, and I think that's the most important thing. Just appreciating music, I guess. That's it, really.
Fantastic. Well, I think one of the things that we'll all, we'll come on to your Blitz Vega project. I know that's what you've been working on recently, and that's we really want to get into the details of that, because obviously you've overcome a lot of hurdles considering the last 18 months that we've had. So we'll come on to that. But you did mention there about the Happy Mondays and you touring with the Happy Mondays, and I know you were quite influential when Shaun Ryder was looking at getting the band back together again. So, how did that come about? And, what was can you tell us about some of your experiences and, some of the issues that you had when you were trying to put the band together, etc.?
I was working with Shaun for about probably about 2 years before I played guitar for the Mondays. So we were putting on a lot of club events around the UK. So in Edinburgh, actually going over to Ireland as well, to Dublin and Belfast as well. So we were just sort of putting these huge events on. Shaun would be DJing, and my band from Leicester, which was a band called AKA Weave at the time, we would be playing live. And we had sort of a lot of sort of Manchester legends who were into the music at the time. So people like Bez and Shaun, Bonehead from Oasis, so Manny from the Stone Roses, people like that were really supportive. Pete Hook, and that kind of led me into when that band split up. Then I moved to London, and I was putting on my own festival called Get Loaded, and I co-founded it with a guy called Danny Newman, who owned Turnmills. And Danny was Paul, the house DJ's brother. So we had this club night at Turnmills, and it brought like about 500 to 1,000 people every month, and it just kind of kicked off. And then we were offered to take on Clapham Common, so we took on Clapham Common. And at the time, you didn't really have a lot of independent festivals, so all the agents were kind of like, look, yeah, you want to book Primal Scream, yeah, you want to book so and so, but they've got they don't want to kind of annoy Glastonbury or V Festival, so they just can't do it. So we couldn't go through the straightforward industry channels. So we asked Shaun if he would do a greatest hits set, and Shaun was like, no, don't want to do a greatest hits yet. Let's reform the Mondays and do a Happy Mondays set, and we'll play a few Black Grape songs. So that was it. And then he just said, you play guitar. And so it wasn't something that was planned. It was it happened very quickly. And so I had my promoter's hat on, but then I ended up playing guitar. And then, yeah, it was just putting that band together. And he was like, look, these guys aren't playing. So his brother Paul and other members who weren't part of it, but Bez will be up for it. And Gaz, the drummer, will be up for it. And that was it. And then, 6 weeks later, we performed at Clapham Common to about sort of 10, 15,000 people. And I thought it was a one-off gig, and ended up doing it for around 4 years.
Fantastic. That's, that must have been quite an experience for you.
Yeah. I mean, I was excited. And it was like I always look back at it, and I remember Shaun saying to me as well, he said, this is like your apprenticeship. This is like going to uni and studying medicine, but you're studying rock and roll, and Shaun Ryder's your lecturer, kind of thing. So that was just a really enjoyable experience, and I look back at it really fondly, and appreciate all my experiences that I had with that band.
Because you've had quite a diverse, we've all, before this, obviously we had a conversation with yourself, but we've also done research into other things that you've done, and you've had a diverse, not only music creation but touring. You've done Coachella, and you've played at the Viper Rooms, and large scale venues across the planet. But on top of that, you've done film scoring for Mr. Nice and Goal, the movie Goal, and lots of different projects. How do you find that as an individual music creator? Do you find that you prefer to do one thing over the rest, or do you like the diversity of having the opportunities to do lots of different things?
I think it's important doing lots of different things, because I think it sort of just inspires you to focus. It just gives you that kind of excitement and energy to want to play live because you've been in the studio for 6 months, or the other way around, basically. So, or put on an event, because every time I put on a live event, I'm like, I'll never do that again. And then a year passes, and then I can't wait to put on another live event. Like right now, I can't wait to get out there and play on stage again. But being in the studio is my favorite thing to do above everything, because you feel as if you're at peace. You're on your own, or working with people like Will or Andy at the moment, and you're with your friends, you're in a bubble, and you just kind of get to create, and there's no stress or pressure, and it's just fun and just enjoyable, and that's probably definitely you know, that would be, if somebody said to me, you can choose one of the things that you've done in the past to keep on doing, then I'd say sitting in the studio writing songs, definitely.
Which kind of is a nice segue into some of the stuff that you've been doing recently, and, you know, bringing Will back into the fold on this is that, you know, you know, you can tell us a bit about your Blitz Vega project, which you've done with Andy from Smiths. But you know, by all means, please tell us a bit about the Blitz Vega project, but also tell us about, you know, considering the past 18 months that we've had, I know you've been working on some new material, and you've had these collaborative issues with, you know, people on the other side of the planet like Will trying to collaborate with you. You know, what are some of the technical problems, and, you know, how did the Blitz Vega project come about? And, you know, just tell us a bit more about it.
Well, with Blitz Vega, I was doing my solo stuff at the time, and I was based in LA, and I was kind of like, I was also putting on these live events, and Andy Rourke came over to DJ one of my nights, and we talked about it over the years that we would, you know, we would just love to work together at some point. And so I asked him to actually guest on one of my solo tracks at first, and then as he came to the studio, we sort of talked about it, and we thought, you know, screw this, let's just start a new live band. Let's start a new band. So we named it Blitz Vega, and off we went. And we worked at various studios and worked with different people, and yeah, Blitz Vega was born. And then obviously we were sort of focusing on recording. So we just started getting out there in 2019. We shot like this live documentary kind of footage, and a live performance at Abbey Road in Studio 2 in April 2019. And then we played a gig at This Feeling in London, and then we played a show at the House of Machines in LA. And then we were just focused on finishing the album, started working with Will, and that's kind of when COVID hit. And we were sort of, in March 2020, we were just in the studio, and the first thing I'd sort of, first time I realised how serious COVID was, Andy arrived to the studio with a mask, and he had a mask for me and a mask for Will. And he was like, we have to wear these masks in the studio. So that's what we did. And but within 2 weeks of those sessions finishing off the album, we had to make a decision. You know, Andy had to go back to New York. I was like, do I stay in LA or do I go back to England? So I just jumped on a plane, came back to England, and then a few weeks later, it was kind of, we were trying to work out, how do we move forward? How do we record? And so we tried various different ways of sort of moving things forward. But you kind of think, I was excited by lockdown at first, because I thought, oh, great, we're going to be locked down, and all I'll do is just write and record music all the time. But it just wasn't as easy as that for some reason. You know, every January I would lock down anyway and just write music, and I'd switch my phone off and wouldn't talk to anyone, or, you know, and but this time, I don't know, and it took months and months to get my head around it, and I just couldn't produce the music that I wanted, or the vocal takes that I wanted, or the guitar parts that I wanted. And then, you know, time passed, and I was going up to my friend's studio at first in Leicester, well, Greg Gent, who plays guitar in the band, and it was just difficult, because, I mean, I'm originally from Leicester, but I've been based in the South, so I would go on these like long journeys up north to the Midlands, and by the time I got there, I would just be sort of, I don't know, I just didn't have that, I'd lost that creative spark. And then me and Will were talking, and Will spoke to a good friend of ours, Pete at the bakery, who masters all the Blitz Vega stuff. And he was like, look, you know, you need to speak to Prison, you need to speak to Mark. And he sort of hooked that conversation up. And then we spoke to you guys, and then, you sent us a Titan, and that kind of changed everything, because suddenly I was able to do vocals at home. I mean, Will kind of fill you in on the process, but it was Will was just trying to get me to not have to mess around with lots of different stuff to get to the point where I can just get on a vocal mic or plug the guitar in. And I was messing around with everything else. So by the time I was picking up my instrument, I just wasn't able to just go with the flow or just play. You know, I'm not someone who likes to plan. I have to just, you know, pick it up, play it, and go with it, and not think about it, kind of thing. But yeah, Will knows the sort of process, really.
So, Will, you know, tell us a bit more about, you know, one of the, you know, obviously, I don't mind who you talk about, but obviously you pointed him in the direction of Prism Sound. Thank you very much, Will, by the way. But, you know, I think this has been the case for a lot of people under this COVID situation, is that, you know, not being able to travel, not being able to throw ideas around as freely, but also the thought that I think, you know, considering what Kav's just said, the difficulty that people have had when they think, oh, well, I've got to go and find someone, the stress that puts people under, because they've got to go somewhere. And it's not only the fact they've got to go somewhere, but the thought of, hang on a minute, I'm going out into the big wide world and there's this COVID about, has added to that, you know, stunting people's creativity. So the ability to be able to collaborate whilst being able to put something down immediately with the right type of equipment, I think is essential. Is this kind of thing that you've experienced, Will?
Absolutely. When all of this started, and I have to say the beginning of the whole COVID experience for me will forever be inextricably linked to KAV and Andy and Blitz Vega, because when we were getting the news that California was closing down, KAV and Andy were sitting on this couch right behind me. We were in the middle of working on this music. And then all of a sudden it was over. We were like, and like KAV said, it was a very confusing time. I didn't, you know, no one knew what lockdown was going to look like or feel like. I was concerned because I was not only working with Blitz Vega, but I had some other projects on the go at that time. So like I was planning to live in my studio until I got those projects done. Who knew? I didn't know if there were going to be police in the streets. And all of this, I point that out because all this stress that this puts on us in our everyday lives also adds stress for us as creative people. So, and I knew, you know, KAV and I had been working together at that point for maybe 9 or 10 months, I want to say. And I had learned pretty quickly that KAV is a really spontaneous guy. Andy as well. They're very much into, let's experiment. Let's try things out. Let's bounce this idea off of each other. And then maybe it turns into a different idea that spawns a third idea. And then that becomes a new song. So to all of a sudden be in 3 different cities, thousands of miles apart, and really most of the Blitz Vega work at that point was going to be between KAV and I, were a lot of vocals to finish and some guitar parts, and I had to do some programming stuff we were going to throw back and forth. And KAV's first solution to the vocal problem, as he said, was to go up to Greg Gent's place in Leicester. But, you know, with all the restrictions, you know, KAV's got to get in a car and drive for hours, and then he'd be exhausted. And then when he got to the studio, he and Greg can't be in the same room together. So there isn't any of that collaborative spirit going on that I know is so important for him. So the more we talked, the more it became clear the only way we were really going to be able to get anything done that KAV was going to be happy with was for him to be able to sit down, pick up a microphone and sing, or pick up his guitar and play, and not have a commute, like an hours-long commute involved in that. And then the other piece is, just like I feel like everybody's experienced this no matter what they do, is we've all had to learn how to work remotely. Everybody has different levels of technical expertise. You know, it's my job as an engineer to understand all this stuff, but I'm not a broadcast engineer. KAV's job isn't really to understand any of it. It's his job to be the artist. So it was about trying to close this loop between how can I let KAV be the artist and I can be the engineer, but we can do it with me on the west coast of the United States and him in the south of England. And the ultimate solution was to use, I had some friends that were doing some remote sessions here, and I talked to them about, what have you found to be the most effective thing? And ultimately, what we ended up doing was using Zoom, so I could control KAV's DAW from Los Angeles. And then one of the great things that worked out perfectly for us was with the Titan interface, there's a software controller for the microphone preamp levels. So I could actually go in, get the levels we needed from Los Angeles on his interface in Surrey, and then say, KAV, anytime you want to record, just load up this software and the levels are ready to go. All you have to do is pick up the microphone, hit record, and go. And we did some sessions. KAV's done a bunch of recording that way, where it's just been him on his own, and then he'll send files to me. Or we've done remote sessions where I'm actually, kind of giving him feedback on vocal performances, or even we've done stuff where we've punched in. It's not as precise as being able to do it live, but we've been able to drop in on sections and do punch-ins and all that stuff. So it's not, is it a replacement for us being in the same room together? I don't think so. But given the circumstances and the stakes of everybody's health and all that stuff, it really worked out great, and we were able to be productive with it.
So do you think that this is going to be, like you say, there's nothing like being in a room and being created together? You can bounce ideas around really quickly. You can try different things, and I have this sort of personal phrase that it's the Joe Meek scenario, where, it sounds to me like you guys want to experiment everything. And I always think about Joe Meek throwing a microphone down a lift shaft and going, well, I wonder what that's going to sound like, And I think sometimes that's what's lost in our industry, is that ability to go, well, let's just try it. I've got the time. Let's just try it and see what happens. But do you think that this new way of working, it's never going to replace being in the same room, but potentially has the possibility of, enhancing our creative ability and our ability to collaborate across the planet with different cultures and different types of music? Do you think it's going to enhance that process?
Well,
you want?
go for it.
To either of you, really. It's a question to both of you.
Okay.
I think we're already seeing it happen. We were talking before this started about I'm teaching a course in recording this summer, and it's all for kids, age 18 and under. And I've had discussions with them about their collaborations. In fact, they're all here in the States. One person was collaborating with someone in Australia. Somebody else was collaborating with someone in the UK. And, these kids are 13, 14, 15 years old. So this is their world now. They're not limited to, who's in town? Who can we all get in the same physical space together? And they're learning to produce a kind of music that's less dependent on instrumentalists being in the same room together. I'm a big fan of instrumentalists being in the same room together, and I don't think that's ever going to go away. But we've had this kind of, like electronic dance music has forever been, one or two people putting together tracks that the world loves. Even on, on great records, there are, hey, can we get so-and-so to guest on this? And in the tape days, it meant, they have to literally have this reel of tape in order to record on it. And then even in the early digital days, sending files around, there's a level of separation there that I know as a producer affects the outcome, versus if I can be virtually in the room with someone and give live feedback and they can react to that feedback, we're going to get a different outcome. So the more engagement we can create, but make the process flexible in the sense that we don't have to be in the same city. We can be halfway around the globe and work together in a collaborative way. That's a game changer to me.
Kav, same question to you.
Yeah, it helps me as a songwriter because I'll get an idea at 3 a.m. or whatever, and I can just jump out of bed, grab a guitar, switch my setup on, and within sort of 15 minutes or 10 minutes even, or less sometimes, I'm able to hit record and record something to a fairly high standard. I think that's something that's really important to me, because I'll have an idea sometimes, and if I've got like a 2-hour journey or an hour journey or whatever, that idea is then gone. And I don't like recording demos. I like to capture something in the moment. I find vocals that you rehearse too much, or guitar parts or guitar solos that you play to perfect, lose that kind of unexplainable sort of feeling, vibe, you could call it. And I'd rather record a mistake that's spontaneous and honest than something that's sort of rehearsed and perfected, because it feels a little too robotic. And that goes for electronic music as well, that I've worked on over the years. I like to hear the beats pounding and then grabbing my guitar or bass or keyboard or whatever, and just sort of expressing myself instantly. And I found that the electronic producers that I was working with years ago, they were already on that kind of vibe. They were on that, and they were working like that years ahead of sort of the rock and roll guys. So yeah, I mean, I think that's just it's been amazing for me. Brilliant.
Fantastic. Well, I'm just going to sort of just do a quick, because we've got quite a few people watching. So I'm just going to do a quick shout out to everyone. Thanks for all tuning in tonight, guys. If you've got any questions, we are taking questions from the audience, and KAV's going vertical, not horizontal anymore.
Sorry, I'm plugging my.
But yeah, if you've got any questions, please do put them in the chat, and we will try and pass your questions on and get you some answers. Actually, there's David has asked a couple of questions. KAV, your new material, he's asked a couple of questions. Could you describe your new material in 3 words for the first question?
3 words.
I'm interested in the answer to this too.
Energetic, anthemic, dirty. So kind of like dirty, edgy, maybe.
Okay, and then he did have a follow-up question.
Was it rude?
And this it's probably going to be a hard one for you to answer, but is there an album you've tried to emulate? If so, which one, or possibly 2?
No, not really. I think we've just, with the Blitz Vega stuff, we've just been recording track after track. So not really thinking about any albums or anything really. And then I guess we'll just put all of that stuff together and release it. Whereas on projects in the past, I suppose we've thought of the whole process as a body of work.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for that. So, moving on to some of the things, some advice for some of the people tuning in, because obviously some of the people tuning in may have, they may be creating music at the moment, or they may be just getting started. If you were to, give people some advice, what equipment should they be looking at? What would you advise them to go out and purchase if they want to become music creators like yourselves?
From a production point of view?
From a production point of view, if you're literally just starting out and you're buying your first bits of kit, what would you really be looking for?
I suppose if you're wanting to record straight away, I would say an iMac. It doesn't matter. You could go back to a 2012 iMac or whatever. You don't have to spend that much. And then basically, even an SM58, and it could just be a standard sort of stereo amp. And as far as monitors, you could pretty much use anything really. Stereo monitors, you don't have to go out there at first and spend a lot of money, which I find a lot of people think that you do have to invest a lot to get started. I mean, my first guitar was cost my mum 50 quid. So that was back then in 2016, you know, when I first started playing guitar. That was well, you know, the 90s actually. But anyway, sorry, I was trying to be funny. But I haven't left this room for nearly 2 years, so my conversational skills aren't actually all there. But yeah, I mean, Will's probably got a better way of answering that question.
I think I probably have the same way of answering it with different words.
Okay, better words.
It's yeah. The first thing is, don't be afraid of, like, there's no barrier to entry in terms of, oh, you have to spend a certain amount in order to make like decent recordings. It's just not true. You can get a $100 microphone and make a great recording with it. The things you're going to need to record are, you're going to need some kind of software. What kind, you know, whether it's Pro Tools or Logic or Ableton Live or Reaper, whatever you can get your hands on, just get your hands on it and start learning how to use it. And have some kind of microphone that you can record things with, and then some kind of halfway decent interface to get you from the microphone to the digital audio workstation software you're using. Now, all of that said, is a more expensive microphone going to generally sound better than a cheaper one? Sure. Is a more expensive interface going to sound better than a cheaper one? Sure. But the important thing is to be creative, because nobody buys a record or listens to a stream and thinks to themselves, what microphone did they record that on? They just think, that sounds cool or that doesn't sound cool. And that's all you got to do. Just make cool stuff and get yourself started doing it. And then as you progress, you'll find, oh, you know, I think I might do a little better if I upped my game with my microphone, or got a little better interface, or I need to be able to record more things at once. So I need an interface that can do more inputs and outputs. So that would be my advice.
Fantastic. And that's really useful advice, because obviously, you know, both you guys have had experience, you know, working in big recording facilities, and, you know, during the last 18 months in particular, working with home setups. So what are the things, you know, what are the main reasons you would go into a professional recording studio over a home recording setup?
I suppose to bounce off other musicians. So being in a live room and playing with my band, that's probably why I would go into sort of professional, larger studio. I love recording with live drummers. So I remember there was a couple of tracks before all of this sort of kicked off that me and Craig, the Blitz Vega drummer, we were just sort of in a live room and we were just playing live together. So we had the guitar, no bass, no keyboards, no lead guitar, just straight up one rhythm guitar and live drums, and we were just kind of recording. Yeah, you got a burglar there, Will?
Nope, it's not here.
No, it's me. It's me. There's something just driven past and they've gone bananas. I do apologise.
Right, sorry. Yeah, so yeah, just bouncing off of the musicians, but really. I think from now on, I'm going to do a lot of my recording on my own, right? Because I enjoy it. I get to express myself, and the amount of tracks I've had a chance to work on. You know, I've kind of wrote 30 new songs for Blitz Vega that we haven't even sort of tackled yet, and we're going to be recording soon. And you know, I've always wanted to record like a one man and his guitar kind of acousticy, kind of bluesy country type thing. And you know, I said to Will the other day, you know, I've done it. You know, I've just got 10 or 12 songs for that, and then something a little bit more kind of, you know, electronic as well, and I've just got to mess with a lot of things where synths and programming beats and stuff that I wouldn't have had a chance to do. And I found actually when I first started out in bands, one of the things that really helped me way back was I used to have a PC with like acid loops on it, and my first band, aka Weave, it was called, from Leicester, so coming out around the just probably maybe a year or two before like Kasabian was sort of out there, and but we were on the same scene as them, and you know, using a lot of beats and using a lot of kind of electronic stuff, and I would program these beats on my PC, and then we'd kind of run them through onto a mini disc player, and then we'd have this mini disc player that we'd play all the backing stuff live and have this 3-piece rock and roll band and stuff, and for years I wasn't able to do that or have the time, and now just having my own setup again, I'm able to sort of work on that stuff. And I think sometimes you can get lost being a live musician, but lockdown, COVID has helped me to sort of lock myself away and just focus on creating music again.
Well, you know, with that in mind, we've had an interesting question. I'm going back sort of quite a way now. There's a question at 7:13, actually. I've just scrolled back from Kay Blaine, and they're interested to know about your musical influences. Considering your musical influences, how did your Abbey Road experience feel? Was it amazing knowing you were recording in the same studio as many of the people that you would class as your, you know, people that inspired you? And you mentioned some of them earlier.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I play a country Gretsch guitar is because of George Harrison and the Beatles in general. So just kind of being in Studio 2 and knowing that all these incredible legendary bands, artists had performed there, recorded some of the, you know, greatest records of all time there, was just, it was just really uplifting, and it was just an incredible experience, and I think it helped the band perform on another level. We were able to record, you know, a live record within 2 or 3 takes. Well, we did 3 takes, and we were happy with all the takes, so we could choose whichever version of each song. It really sort of, I suppose it could be from a live point of view. If I ever had the opportunity of playing Wembley Stadium, then that would be a similar thing. But Studio 2, Abbey Road was basically up there.
Fantastic. Will, quick question for yourself, and this may be a difficult one for you to answer, so I don't really want to put you on the spot, but what would you say is distinctive about a KAV production?
There's a lot, actually. To me, the first thing that comes to mind as a producer, like when KAV is coming into the studio, it's spontaneity. I know he's going to want to be in a situation where he can let the creative ideas flow, and we can capture them in the moment and go back and hear them, and he can go, yeah, I love that. That's going to be this part of this song, or that's going to be the beginning of this new song. This is the first track we need. That spontaneity, there's a looseness to the music. It's actually kind of cool because he's always blending these really sort of digital electronic elements with live players and music and vocals, and it's this contrast of the electronic stuff that can be exactly on the beat and perfected, layered with this very human stuff that harkens back to, he keeps talking about Guns N' Roses and Izzy Stradlin and the Rolling Stones. Like that, you can hear that stuff in KAV's productions, and I feel like that's a big part of what makes it special, is this blending of those two worlds and understanding of where do we want to take it more in the human direction, where do we want to take it more in the electronic direction, how much grit do we want on it, how much perfection do we want to have, and having that tension that's constantly pushing and pulling back and forth really makes the music exciting.
Okay, and with that in mind, you know, obviously there's many stages. You've got the recording stage, which we've already touched on. That Kav's been doing a lot of the stuff at home using the Titan that he's got, and the microphones that he's got, and the monitors that he's got. But you know, there's other stages like the mixing and the mastering stage. In your opinion, what makes a good mix and a good master?
Oh wow, that to me changes from project to project. Because mixing, and I think if we had Peter Hewitt Dutton here, who does all the Blitz Vega mastering, I think he would say the same thing about mastering. You're trying to create a world that the listener is going to live in that is specific to the music that you're working on. And there's just a feeling to that. You know, as you're working on a project, you get a sense of, I guess, the same as if you're a fan and you have an album that you love that you've listened to 100 times and it makes you feel a certain way. We're thinking about, okay, this is how we want our audience to feel, and how is the mixing and the mastering going to bring us to that place? In terms of technical stuff, you know, sometimes that means making the mix really clean so that you can hear all the individual instruments because they all have something to say. Sometimes it means making a mess of them and maybe distorting a whole bunch of stuff, you know, making it feel like it's loud and in your face versus everything's kind of in its place and on a stage in front of you. All those things are considerations that we're taking into account from project to project, so it's never exactly the same.
Okay, fantastic. Kav, we've touched on, you know, the diverse range of projects that you worked on, including the Blitz Vega stuff, the Happy Mondays, the film projects, the touring, you know, and a lot of the stuff that you do is your own stuff, your own material. But is there any artist that you would like to work with that you've not had the opportunity to work with at the moment?
I don't know. I don't know how you'd. I suppose working with the person I work with now, Andy Rourke, is probably one of the best experiences I've ever had. I mean, the Smiths are probably one of the greatest bands of all time, and the bass, the way the bass, the drums and guitar kind of entwines with each other and moves, and obviously you've got Morrissey on top, but just kind of listening to Andy Rourke's bass playing, he's so original, he's so different from other bass players. He's not that traditional kind of stereotype of a Mancunian bass player, maybe you could say that, or a Mancunian band member. He's just he's the best musician I've ever worked with. It's simple as that. So I don't know how I'd top that. I suppose the only way I'd top it would be, and he wouldn't mind me saying this, would probably working with Keith Richards or something, getting to sort of play guitar with somebody like that, who is my all-time favorite guitar player. But that's about it, really. I don't know. Take every day as it comes, and if you get a chance to work with whoever that you're a fan of, then brilliant.
I think that's probably the best bit of advice at the moment, is that considering the circumstances we're in, taking every day as it comes is the most important thing. You know, there's not much else we can do, really.
Just waking up. Great.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm up. I'm out of bed. Cool.
So, you know, just coming back to the technical elements of the way you guys have worked over the last 18 months, you know, when considering your workflow and the way you've been working, do you think it's important to capture your performance in its entirety, you know, with the most neutral, transparent signal path and accurate equipment, and, you know, and then having the choice to adapt or, you know, change it in the mix? Or do you think it's better to record it colored? You know, considering that you're using the Prism, what would you guys have a preference, or do you think it depends on the project?
Well, that one's for you.
So I'm of two minds about this. There's one way of thinking that I have that's my general way of thinking, and the advice that I give to people who ask this kind of question, which is, it's always easier to record something clean with a clean signal path and great equipment and then mess with it later than it is to commit to the messed up thing at the beginning and find out you wish it was a little more clean. So generally speaking, that's the way I like to think about recording, because I know what I have at my fingertips available to me after we get the initial track recorded, where I can screw around with it and add distortion, whatever I want. KAV and I have been working together long enough now that I have a sense of what he's going for in terms of what the final outcome of the sound is going to be. And a lot of that has that grit built into it. So we've got a setup. We've got to, obviously the Prism converters on his end are very clean, but we've often been using an SM58 microphone with him on his end, just so he can have that vibe of singing and not thinking about, yeah, that one right there. This is what I look at on the screen.
It's my go-to mic, it's, yeah.
Yeah, and we just made the executive decision at some point. Like KAV said, I feel really good just sitting here singing into this, and I said, fine, then that's our microphone. Other people I know, famously, Bono has used an SM58 to sing great U2 songs that everybody loves the sound of. I said, you know what? If they can make it work, we can make it work, and we did. I do think for sure having that microphone with a really, world-class converter after it makes it easier for me to sculpt the sound the way I want to when I'm working on the post-production and mixing aspects. And that said, we've also done, when KAV was here in LA, we've recorded with beautiful tube microphones and gotten great results out of that too. So it's really a matter of, now that I, as a producer, have over time I've developed a good relationship with KAV, and he trusts me to know what I'm doing, and I trust him to have the vision he's going to have. We're able to make those sort of upfront choices. We're like, yeah, we can use that SM58, and for what we want in the final analysis, it's going to be fine.
Yeah, and that's the most important thing, trust in a working relationship. You need to know that whoever you're working with, say from my point of view as a musician, vocalist, it's important that you're able to not have to think about all the technical side of things. I'm able to trust Will. He knows what I want. He can get on with it, and I can just do my thing, and that's it. And it makes the creative process a lot easier. And it's as simple as that, really. It's the same thing with band members. You've got the right drummer when he just does his thing. You may have to say, look, chill out on the ride here, or go to the crash or whatever. But really, he's got a feel and a vibe, and it just works. And that's a relationship I have with Will. That's a relationship I have with Andy, and the rest of my band, Asa, and all the guys. And that is the most important thing. It's relationships. It's vibe. It's how that chemical reaction. You can get one band that plays 3 chords, and then you can get another band that plays 3 chords. But why does that band, one band sound better or feel better, and the other band kind of sounds like they're probably playing it better technically, but the other band's a band that you're a fan of, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a rubbish way of describing it, but you know what I mean?
No, yeah, I get it.
For me as a producer, building that trust with the artist I'm working with, and having sort of developing the shorthand and getting trying to get as much into their headspace as I possibly can, so that I can translate their ideas through all of the technical choices I have in front of me to color their sound, is super important. That's my instrument, really, is the studio, right? So they're saying to me, I need you, in the same way KAV's talking about, hey, I need the drummer to go to the ride cymbal for the chorus of this song. In my case, it's, hey, I need you to create this sound for this part of this song, and I'm trusting you to know how to use all that equipment. And I take that really seriously.
And that's interesting. That kind of leads me on to, another question that I've got is that, you've obviously invested in equipment this year to get over the issues that we've had with coronavirus, but there is a train of thought that people think that modern production techniques, some people think it's inspired our creativity. Others think it's almost introduced an element of laziness, because we've kind of followed this. A lot of people follow this formulaic structure. And it seems to me that you guys have managed to sort of not venture down that path, because, you know, you're maintaining that creative element. But do you think there's an element of laziness with this formulaic structure that a lot of people have?
Yeah, I think so. I guess so, to a certain extent. I suppose, you know, you can do so much without having to spend so much time doing it. We try to see the performance as the most important thing and trying to capture that on record. Now, to perform, you have to sing through a song, or you have to play guitar through a song to capture that performance. And that's how you sort of mix live music with that kind of electronic feel to it as well. Yes, you can paste across a load of beats and stuff, but you still have to be able to have, you know, the ups and downs and stuff, and, you know, certain cymbals coming in, the snare picking up, etc. So it's kind of you still have to perform it as an artist, and I feel that's important. If you lose that, then, you know, it's not something that I'm interested in making. It's not something that I would enjoy. You know, it would become science. What, you know, science is great, but what's the point in that? Music's an art, really. It's to express yourself completely, and yeah, that's kind of my view on it, really.
Okay. And, you know, it kind of quite, well, this is a question for both of you. You know, in the last 18 months, can you give us a couple of key lessons that you've learned about producing, collaborating, engineering, that others could take away and that they could be inspired from?
Cool.
To me, the biggest thing has been, don't take the ability to collaborate for granted. As cool as it is to be able to do a million things by myself in the studio, nothing is as satisfying as working with someone else to create something. You know, and I'm not an artist, I'm a producer, but getting an email saying, hey, can we do this to a specific song or sound or mix or whatever, versus having someone there live to bounce, like, hey, what do you think of this mix, or what do we think of this vocal sound, or whatever. It just makes such a huge difference to the final outcome, and that and to be able to figure out how to do it virtually has been an absolute blessing.
Okay. Kav?
For somebody to sort of take away, sorry, say that again. Say the question again. I apologize.
So basically, some sort of key lesson that you've learned or tip that you've learned over the last 18 months about producing, collaborating, engineering that somebody could take away, that you've has particularly come about due to COVID, something that you could say, you know, this is what you need to be doing, or this is what you need to look at, or this is what you need to consider.
You don't need a lot. You can create music without investing too much, without too much effort in learning the technical side. You don't have to go to college, to a certain course or whatever, to learn certain things. You can express yourself very quickly and get it down. And if that means you're recording something that isn't at high quality and you're able to then take it to a studio at a later date, then great, you know. And again, I think exactly what Will said there. Being able to, don't take being in a room with other musicians for granted, or getting up on stage with other musicians for granted, because I think we need to connect with other humans to be able to create great music. We bounce off each other. I mean, you can get a musician who plays the drums, bass, guitar and everything, and they can do all the parts the same, but there's something about the drummer connecting with a different bass player or whatever. So yeah, that's it.
Okay, cool. Well, look, we're pretty much into our hour now. We're pretty much done our hour. So, you know, the last couple of questions, there's something I am going to pick up from the the people that have made comments. So I'll finish with that. But the last couple of questions for myself: what can we expect from KAV in the rest of 2021?
We are finishing the Blitz Vega album. We've got 2 EPs nearly ready to go. Jags Kuhn is mixing a few tracks for us at the moment, and
Brilliantly.
yeah, and we should be releasing something pretty special pretty soon. Special, I mean that it's got various guests on it and stuff that we can't announce at the moment. So that'll be coming out soon, and we're also we're going to be releasing like a range of away from music, a range of t-shirts, and you can buy a t-shirt, a Blitz Vega t-shirt, and then we plant a tree in a forest in Haiti, which is something that we're sort of really passionate about. We're releasing a Blitz Vega beer, and with a brewery in London, and just kind of doing various little things. We haven't booked any tours yet, but hopefully we'll be announcing live shows, and we'll be spending 2021 playing live as much as possible.
Fantastic. And what are your, and this is a question for both of you, where do you see yourselves going from here? What are your hopes for the future? Both, maybe personally, maybe professionally.
After you, Will.
Great. I got to come up with the answer first.
As you can see, I keep throwing you in. There you go. Will.
I'm very excited to get this Blitz Vega stuff out into the world. Just having to slam the brakes on this right at a moment where I felt like we were about to kind of hit the gas. Is like, I'm just so excited for people to be able to hear this stuff. And then I just hope to keep being able to produce and mix and engineer great music with great people. That's why I do this gig, and that's what I want to keep doing.
Fantastic. KAV, now you've had a couple of minutes to think about it.
I think that's it really for me. It's just being able to play with all the guys again. In Blitz Vega, it's probably the most enjoyable band experience I've experienced for maybe ever. It's such a great bunch of guys, and again, stepping into Abbey Road Studio 2 and bouncing off all of them and playing with them and rehearsing with them, it's just a really it's a really cool vibe, and you look forward to getting into a rehearsal room, and just it would be great to get in, getting into a tour bus with those lads and traveling the world. I think that's it. I just want to travel again. I just need to get out there, and I've probably seen a handful of people in a year and a half. So just that's it. Getting out there, playing live. Can't wait for that.
And I have to finish on these ones. So this is a bit of a bizarre one, but which United player would you compare your band to?
Oh wow, Eric Cantona.
Nice answer. And finally, what do you think? Do you think Sancho is a good signing?
Yes, definitely. I think he will definitely improve the United team.
Fantastic. Well, look, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for your time this evening and this morning. I hope everybody's enjoyed it. And I hope you got a lot out of it. I know I have. It's been really interesting and fascinating for me to learn from you guys. If you want any more information, you can see the email address, web addresses going across the bottom of the screen. That was KAV and Will Kennedy talking about their experiences of working together through COVID. And coming up next month, if anybody's interested, we will be talking to Josh Blair, who's worked with the likes of Mark Ronson.
I am friends with Josh Blair. I went to college with Josh Blair. That man is a genius.
Excellent. Well, you heard it here first, folks. So, tune in next month for Josh Blair, who I think it's on the 18th of August. And you know, he's worked he knows Will, so there's an important reason for tuning in. But he's worked with Mark Ronson, he's worked with Amy Winehouse, he's done Duran Duran, he's done Uptown Funk for Bruno Mars. So that hopefully should be as interesting as it has been tonight. So thanks ever so much, guys. Thanks for your time, and we'll see you all again soon. Goodbye.
Thank you very much.